Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Lehman from Math with Mrs. Lehman, and as many of my viewers know, the school that I work at is remote for, and I'm sure many of you watching are at a school who is remote right now. So I know not everyone is able to join the Google Meet that I had for class, and those are only 22 minutes long, so they're pretty short. So I just wanted to do a video kind of explaining what we worked on today, which was lesson 5. So this is the module that some coworkers and I worked on this summer, revamping. It was originally New York State Module 2. So in this lesson, we are setting you guys up for success in dividing fractions, which is a huge component of 6th grade and is outlined in Module 2. All right, so anyway, Lesson 5, decimals, fractions, and mixed numbers. So the first thing we need to define is what a decimal is. So I'm going to write this on here, and you can feel free to do the same in your module. It is a number whose whole number part, I'm going to abbreviate slightly, and fractional part is separated by a decimal point. And obviously you guys see decimals all the time. We deal with money, and that involves decimals. I mean, these things can go on forever. And then what is a fraction? A fraction is a quantity that is not a whole number. So we're going to deal with whole numbers a lot in Module 3, where we talk about integers and the number line and all that stuff. But right now we're talking about fractions, and obviously they're just not whole numbers. So an example would be a half, maybe a fourth, 1/10. I mean, infinite examples. It says our next task is to convert the following fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions. So one thing that happens a lot is kids, I think they know it, but don't necessarily, how do I want to say this? They don't really think about how our decimal system is based on 10, right? So when we see a fraction like 3/10, that is very, whoop, I just changed the page. That is very easy to convert to a decimal. So you would read this decimal, 0.3, as 3/10, just like you'd read the fraction on the left as 3/10. And then this next example, you see 42/100, and you would write that like so. Now, what happens a lot of times is we'll give students these examples where there is a base 10 denominator. So these numbers right here have a 1 and zeros after them, and they think, oh, great. And then, oops, I'm trying to erase, hold on. And then they think, oh, great, you just put the numbers down, like 3/10 is 0.3, 42/100 is 0.42, and then they'll see 3/5 and they'll be like, oh, 0.35. And that's not the case. Remember back in Module when we talked about this fraction bar? I'm going to highlight it, get fancy here. That fraction bar right there, that means division, right? So that means 3 divided by 5. So we're going to change that to a decimal by dividing. So you take your top number, and that's being divided by the bottom number. So 5 does not go into 3. We're going to add a decimal point and bring that up, and a 0. 5 goes into 36 times. So this is worth 6/10. Now another way that you can do this, when you have one of these pretty special denominators here that will easily scale up to a power of 10. So if I can scale this up to 10 or 100 or 1,000, what you can do is just say, okay, I got to double that. Double this, 6/10. Well, you would read 6/10 the same way you would write the decimal and fraction. So if you can easily scale up, you can do that. That doesn't happen all the time, obviously, so we can always divide. But on this next example, 15 out of 20, we can do either method. So we could take 15 and divide it by 20. We could say, okay, 20 doesn't go into 1 or 15. So we're going to add a decimal point and a 0 here. It goes into 150 7 times. And then that would give us 140. Subtract, you get 10, right? And then add another 0 because we need it. So 20 goes into 105 times. So we know 15 out of 20 is 75 hundredths. And if we were to simplify this, we would divide the top and bottom by 5, and we would get 3/4. And I think many people know just from our work with percents that 3/4 is 75%, or as a decimal, 0.75. But what we could do also here is scale this up to be out of 100, right? Because 20 and 100 are very compatible. So we're going to scale that up by multiplying 20 by 5. And we're going to do the same thing to the top here. 15 times 5 is 75. So 75 hundredths that way. And the next few examples, they give us the decimal, and we just have to change it to a fraction. Now, we're going to do this pretty much how you would read the decimal, and then we can simplify in some cases. So if we can simplify, we will, and if not, we'll just leave it as is. But for the first example, we have 7/10. That's how you would read this number right here, 7/10. So we would write it just like you hear it, 7/10, and that cannot be simplified. So that's already in lowest terms, so we're just going to leave that one. The next one, you would read this as 28 hundredths. Again, 28 hundredths. So we're going to put the 28 out of 100, and then we're going to scale that down. We're going to simplify that. If I were to divide that in 2, it would be 14/50ths, right? But I can go lower. These are still both even numbers, so I'm going to go with 7/25ths. And that's as low as I can go there. So any of those numbers, and we could even scale that up repeatedly, and we would still get 28 hundredths, because when you divide 28 by 100, when you divide 14 by 50 or 7 by 25, you're going to get 0.28. All right, the next one is 1/10. Pretty straightforward here. We cannot simplify that one. So that's the first page of what we did today. We're going to scroll on to the next page. And also, if you need to look at this module for any reason, you can always visit my website. It's listed under the school's website, and you can download it there so that you have it at home to work from. All right, what is a mixed number? So a mixed number, that is a whole number and a proper fraction. So whole number and a proper fraction. A proper fraction is where the numerator is smaller than the denominator. An example would be, we have 2 wholes, right, and 1/3, so 2 1/3. That is a mixed number. And what is an improper fraction? And you guys are used to seeing these. These are a fraction where the numerator is greater than or equal to the denominator. So pretty much, to put it in basic terms, the top number is bigger than the bottom number. So for example, 5/4, 6/5, 27/13, anything like that, just where that top number is bigger. All right, and it says determine the equivalent representation of each number in the appropriate form. So as a decimal, the same rules apply, except for now, instead of putting a 0 in front, you're just going to put the whole number. So in this case, 2 3/10, we're going to do 2.3. The improper fraction, so just a quick review of that. So I'm going to write this over to the side. So we have 2 3/10, right? And what we do to get this into an improper fraction is you take your bottom number, or your denominator, and you multiply it by your whole number. So this is multiplied, right? So we're going to get 20. Then you're going to take that total and add the numerator. So we'd have 23 over, keep the same denominator, 23/10. because if we were to take 23 and divide it by 10, we would get 2 whole amounts, right? And then we would have 3 left over out of 10. So we'd have 2 3/10. So that's how you do that. So this next one, 8 89/100ths. They started us off pretty easy on this. Improper fraction, so you're going to do 8 times 100, which gives you 800, right? So we're going to multiply these two numbers. All right, so that's 800 plus 89. So you're going to have 889 over 100. Keep the same denominator. This next one's really easy to turn into an improper fraction. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Keep the same denominator of 2, so 7 halves. And so I'm just going to draw a quick picture of that for a second. All right, so we know the answer is 7 halves, but okay. So let's say I'm drawing half circles, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So that is 3, 1, 2, 3, right, and a half. So 3 halves. I'm sorry, 3 1/2. Okay, let me erase that. Alright, so anyway, that's up to 7 halves. And then as a decimal, that would be 3.5. And you guys should know that if you take 1 and divide it by 2, right, you're going to have 0 point, and then 2 goes into 10 5 times, so 5/10, like that. So that's when you probably should commit to memory, I would say. Alright, so 7 halves. Okay, the next one, if we multiply, now they didn't simplify this, and I say they, I mean the people who wrote this module. That'd be me. Or some of the other teachers. 7 and 12/20ths, so that would be 7, and the biggest number that goes into each is 4, so that would be 3/5. So we could do this, we could do 38/5, right? I mean, we could do the bigger number. We could do 7 times 20, which is 140, plus 12 is 152 over 20. That's obviously something we could do, but yeah. Right, let's see, what was I doing? Decimal. Okay, so 7 and 3/5. I know 3/5 is 0.6 or 6/10, so 7.6. Or again, we could say, okay, 12 out of 20. What would that be out of 100? Or you could even do 10 actually. I could scale that down and make it out of 10. So I'd divide it by 2. Take this and divide it by 2. You're going to get 6, right? So 6/10 like that. If we did it the other way and scaled it up, we'd be multiplying by 5. 20 times 5 is 100. 12 times 5 is 60. So the only real difference is if you would put the 0 on the end, and then you guys know you don't need that, so you'd probably just get rid of it anyway. So whatever floats your boat. All right, 5.6 is the decimal. We want the mixed number, so use the pencil, Mrs. Lehman. All right, so 5 and 6/10 is how you'd read that, and that's how you'd see it as a fraction. So 5 is obviously the whole amount, and we have 6 out of 10. Now that could also be 5 and 3/5, right? So that could be simplified. The improper fraction, we could do 5 times 5 is 25, plus 3 is 28 over 5. And again, if we were to take 28 and divide it by 5, we're going to get 5, right? That gives you 25. You're going to have 3 left over. So instead of doing remainder, we would say 3 out of 5. So 5 and 3/5 is equivalent to 28/5. Okay, and then the last one here, 18 and 45/100. So 18 is our whole number, and 45 out of 100 is our mixed number. And again, that would be the same as saying the simplified version of this, which would be 18, and I'm dividing the top and bottom by 5, so that would be 9/20. So we could, as an improper fraction, it may be easier, I don't know, whichever works for you. I mean, I think it's better to always go with the simplified version if you're good at simplifying, because the numbers don't get as inflated. 2 times 18 I know is 36, so we'd have 360, add the 9, 369 over 20 would be one way of doing it. You could obviously do 18 times 100, so you get 1,800. Plus the 45 would be 1,845 out of 100. You could do it that way as well. But either way, that's what we've got going on here. Let's see. Here are just a bunch more examples, and then there's a summary. And we didn't have a chance to really go over this in class. There's just so many examples in here, and 22 minutes isn't enough. So we can kind of look at this if you want to. It says, to go from a fraction to a decimal, make the blank a multiple of 10. So that we want the bottom number, right? So we'd say the denominator. We want it to be a power of 10. Let's see, in order to make 3/5 into a fraction, with the denominator as a multiple of 10, we multiply the top and bottom by 2 to get an equivalent fraction of 6/10, which is the same as 6/10, so we can write it as 0.6. To go from a mixed number to an improper fraction, multiply the, okay, so, this is kind of choppy. Alright, so multiply the denominator. Oh my, that got ugly quick. Let me try that again. Multiply the denominator to the whole number and add the numerator. And then it doesn't say to keep the same. Let's add this. Keep the same denominator. Right. The same denominator. Alright. So for example, we did that one. And then this is just going back. Alright, so you've got the improper fraction of 5/2, right? So to do that, what you're going to do is divide the numerator, aka the top number, by the denominator, and the remainder becomes a fraction. So you put that remainder as your top number, and then you keep the same denominator again. So yeah, nothing terribly exciting here, just a bunch more practice. I don't think I need to go through everything with you guys. It's a pretty straightforward lesson. Like I said, what we're going to be doing after this lesson is multiplying fractions, and then we're putting both of these pieces together to get us where we want to be, which is dividing fractions. So when we divide fractions, we need to have them in a format where it's just a numerator and a denominator. So that's why we're learning about how to make sure we can convert a mixed number to one of those. Alright, so I'm going to end this video. Obviously, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm always appreciating new subs. And sorry I haven't uploaded a video in forever. Times have been a little hectic if you haven't noticed. So there's a lot on everyone's plate, I know that. So I figured a video might help you guys and hopefully get me back on track for uploading. So I hope you have a great night, guys. I'll see you soon. Talk to you later. Bye.